Welcome back to the Retro Inc. podcast with myself, Adam, and my co-host,
Andy. Hello, everyone.
Hello there. This is our original trilogy retrospective and beyond. And I'm going to start by reading out from a little book that I had as a child. And this is the novelization of George Lucas's Star Wars from the Adventure of Luke Skywalker, the spectacular motion picture from 20th Century Fox. And on the back of the book, it says, Luke Skywalker challenged the stormtroopers of a distant galaxy on a daring mission where the force of life became the power of death. Farm chores sure could be dull, but Luke Skywalker's bored beyond belief. He yearned for adventures out among the stars, adventures that would take him beyond the furthest galaxies to distant alien worlds. But Luke got more than he bargained for when he interrupted and intercepted a cryptic message from a beautiful princess held captive by a dark and powerful warlord. Luke didn't know who she was, but he knew he had to save her, and soon because time was running out. Armed only with courage and with the lightsaber that had been his father's, Luke was catapulted into the middle of a most savage space war ever. He was headed straight for a desperate encounter on the enemy battle station known as the Death Star, the greatest sci-fi movie ever from 20th Century Fox. Now, reading that...
That sounds terrible.
Doesn't it?
I don't want to watch that film.
But, I mean, you know, Luke's got to challenge the stormtroopers of a distant galaxy in a daring mission. I suppose he did. I don't really think that Vader was a warlord so much. But really, you know, what the most important part of this is that George Lucas created a sensation with the original Star Wars trilogy. The special effects were on the scale never seen before. Although when the first film was released, Star Wars in 1977, no one could have predicted the success that lay in store. The three movies, Star Wars A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, became the biggest box office blockbusters of any movie series, and the characters Lucas created became household names, as did many of the most famous lines of dialogue. May the Force be with you has become one of the most quoted lines from any film, proving how these epic tales of swashbuckling heroism, action and romance have found a place in the hearts of Star Wars fans the world over. The unprecedented levels of merchandising and huge publishing program based around these first three movies reinforced the enduring affection for the films over the years, and their release as special editions 20 years after they were first screened infected a whole new generation with the Star Wars bug. Despite extensive coverage of movies in book form, the movie scripts, which I've read extensively, I think are the key to really sort of looking at how George wrote Star Wars, previously with The Star Wars, which was his first sort of way of sort of showing the studio what he was going about. But, you know, we know from George that he was looking at a lot of World War One and World War Two footage for the X-Wings and the TIE fighters and those kind of stuff. But when we sort of look at A New Hope, are we really seeing a continuation of Vader's story throughout this? Or are we seeing the New Hope as in being in Luke? Because really the chosen one of Anakin has been changed now and swapped to his son. Well, obviously we didn't know that it was his father until Empire. But, you know, who is the real hero, do you think, of A New Hope? Because Han for me was the one that really became the hero. I mean, I don't know about you, but I just thought he was just the coolest guy on the planet.
It's one of those, isn't it? You know, they say there's only so many types of story to be told. Star Wars breaks the mold slightly with the fact that there's a couple of hero journeys in here. In fact, there's three. There's Leia, there's Luke, and there's Han. That's
right, yeah.
There's three heroes' journeys here. They've all got their own motives. They've all got their own aspirations that they're careful not to choke on. And see what I did there? There is, you know, there's three heroes' journeys going off all at once here, or the heroine's journey and two heroes' journey, however you want to do this. The only reason why Vader could, or Anakin could be brought into this is because of retroactively, doing so because of the prequel trilogy. So that aside, this was always written, obviously, as the hero's journey for Luke, but it's deeper than that. It's a lot deeper than that. Like you say, there are 3 parts to this puzzle of the hero's journey, and without either one of them, the mission would fail. Luke would not get anywhere if it wasn't for the other 2 to help him. And I think that goes the same with them as well. They're 3 parts of the puzzle. That's why it's a different kind of story here, that we've not had something like that before or since. So
if you watched in a sort of machete order, Solo, Rogue One, Episode 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, it becomes really clear that Star Wars doesn't have a main character in this. In fact, for a lot of that, it feels like it's the Han Solo story if you watched it in that order.
Yeah.
Which is quite amazing.
But it's always colloquially spoken about as the Skywalker saga, isn't it? And let's be honest, I can think of 3 Skywalkers in the first movie alone, in number 4. So I mean, from the very first, if you watch Solo right at the very beginning, if you watch The Last Jedi, the last mention really is Han, isn't it? Yeah.
Really. So it seems in that way Han is the hero, and as you say, Leia becomes the heroine.
Yeah, and Han is key to the whole story, isn't he?
Yeah.
Ben Solo's father. This. Yeah, without Han, a lot of this falls apart. If Han hadn't have been the man that he is, and I like how they retroact. I don't want to go into Solo too much, but they, you see this happy-go-lucky scoundrel that's ready to make a quick buck and do it the way he wants to do it, and he has fun no matter what he's doing. He always seems to be having fun, and then we get this gritty, sardonic, done with the world guy, and we get an understanding now because of Solo why he is like that. Because basically everyone that he's ever trusted has defecated on him from a great height. And, that would do that to you. But then when we see him in Empire and he's going to leave and he's got what he wants, and no, sorry, it's in A New Hope, isn't it? He's got what he wants, he's going to leave. That guy comes back through, that one from Solo that's like, yes. I can't do this. I've got to do the right thing. He knows. He's deep down inside, Han Solo is probably the most genuine hero out of the lot of them. He does it in Empire. Yeah. He's going to leave. I've had enough. Yeah. I'm escaping. We see it in Solo with Enfys Nest, isn't it? At the end when she goes, I think he's going to help you. That's right. And that is... Yeah, I mean, you put it into that context, then the real hero of these stories is Han, because Luke is a protagonist, but he comes very close to becoming the antagonist on a couple of occasions here. Leia is, I don't want to degrade her character in any way because she's very important. She's a strong female character that, again, was not something we had back then when movies were made, but she is the love interest. She's the driving force for Han to stay, to do the right thing. But I think if you did take her out of it, I mean, I'd never want that to happen. I still think Han would do the right thing because that is his character. Let's have a little look at this this cast. I mean, this is like the greatest band of all time, isn't it? Mark Hamill, Harrison Ford, Carrie Fisher, Peter Cushing, Alec Guinness, Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, Peter Mayhew, Dave Prowse. I mean, that's like the greatest band, isn't it? It's like naming the Beatles. Yeah. Isn't it? Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, these are all people that... every single one of those names warms my heart. Quite incredible, isn't it? Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is a movie that I have seen 1,300 times. I mean,
I mean, I've been called all kinds of names in the past, but certainly mad is one of them. But this film is the greatest film of all time for me. I don't think there'll ever be another movie. It'll never be knocked off my number one. There's not really a lot that hasn't been said about Star Wars. I think we can call it A New Hope occasionally, but it is, to me, it's Star Wars, and The Empire Strikes Back is not necessarily Episode 5.
I think I call it A New Hope more for clarity.
Yeah, I think
because
so.
You're talking to Joe Public, and you say Star Wars. Oh, what one? Well, I mean Star Wars. That's what I mean. It's Star Wars. It's A New Hope. Oh, I mean number 4. Yeah, that it's just clarity, isn't it? That's all it's for. So,
let's talk about your favourite moments in Star Wars: A New Hope.
Star Wars.
What moments really stand out?
For me, there is. I love the trash compactor scene. I don't know what it was. I think when I was a kid, that was the real thrill. You get that scene, you get the little eye pop out, the little monster. And I mean, I'm a big creature fan from Star Wars.
Incredible smell you've discovered.
That's a great scene, but I think
it's very funny, isn't it? It's humorous.
One of my favourite scenes, and it sticks with me, and I remember this from a kid, and it's not important. It's really not important. But it was when they first get on the Millennium Falcon. I saw Star Wars before we had the special editions as well, so we're not even talking about the bit with Jabba, and we saw him, we see him in the cantina talking to Han, and he's like, okay, we'll meet you by the docking bay and we'll go. And I think it's because it opened that world up. So far in that film, we'd seen a couple of spaceships, but we'd been mostly on Tatooine. And all of a sudden, they're on this ship, and they're sitting around, and there's this cast of characters. You've got Chewie sitting there playing chess, and you got Luke training with the ball, the training ball, and Han giving it the whole mumbo jumbo, hocus pocus, and all this. And yeah, I love that scene. I think it's a great. I mean, now obviously there's it kind of it does those comparisons of religion, doesn't it? You've got these two guys that are almost on some sort of like pilgrimage, and this guy going, "You're mental. I don't care what you're doing. Just pay me for it, and I'll take you there." But he's quite outspoken about his feelings with it, and yeah, I just love that scene, man. I really do. I don't know what it is about it when they're all on that ship. There's something about it. I mean, there's so much character to it. There's so much life to it, and even now, there's more depth to that scene than you'll get in a lot of movies, from the set design, the script, the conversation that's actually happening. There's a lot going on in that one scene. A lot going on in that one scene. And it does a lot to propel the story as well, because you get more of an understanding of the Force, how people perceive it in the outside of that. And this young kid that, I do like, there's the thing they take the mick out of in Family Guy, where when Han says that about this whole hocus pocus and mumbo jumbo, and Luke gets all up to you about it, it's like, oh, what, that thing you learnt about like half an hour ago. There's all that. I mean, it just goes to show Luke's age, really, and his maturity, that he will, I think at that point, Luke will be willing to believe anything that's thrown at him to become more than what he is. He wants to know about his father. He wants to be special. He wants to be, this pilot, this not a farm boy. He wants to get off of that planet. And I think he'll believe anything that's thrown at him at that point. And in some ways, I think he's lucky it wasn't Vader that turned up and took him, because I think he'd happily go with him as well at that point. But yeah, I mean, there's lots of fun parts in this movie. But that's, I think, for the start of it, that's one of the ones that sort of stands out to me that made it a bit more serious than what we'd had so far.
Mine is the opening crawl. I'll see if I can remember.
Well, you had to one up me there and go right to the start, didn't you?
Have a go. It's a period of civil war. Rebel spaceships striking from a hidden base have won their first victory against the evil Galactic Empire. During the battle, rebel spies managed to steal secret plans from the Empire's ultimate weapon, the Death Star, an armored space station, enough power to destroy an entire planet. Pursued by the Empire's sinister agents, Princess Leia races home aboard her starship, custodian of the stolen plans that can save her people and restore freedom to the galaxy.
Well done. Well done.
And then we see that ship.
Can you tell me why some words are all in capitals in that? Is there a reason? Because I know that they changed it for the special edition, didn't they? Some of it, that's Civil War, there was capitals, or they put capitals in, and certain parts of it they changed because obviously it was just grammatically incorrect. But
I can't, mate. I can't.
It just weirds me out that
I've seen
cruel.
it. I know it's there. I didn't really question it. Maybe it is a hint to the prequel. Maybe it's a hint to, I don't know.
Yeah,
what
I just wondered. It was just one of those things. It just seems strange. I know there were some issues with the way they'd written some of it, and they changed it for the special editions. But there's just, I think it's Civil War. Or maybe it's just to emphasize it, but there's some words that are in capitals, in all in uppercase.
That's right, they are.
I just wondered if there was a reason for it, but okay. But that's one of your favourite scenes, is it?
It is. It's just that opening call because it's we'd never seen anything like that except from Flash Gordon,
the
TV series, and I'd obviously watched episodes of that on reruns.
Do you remember the first time you saw Star Wars?
Oh yeah,
in the cinema.
Oh yeah.
And because I'm unlucky here because I didn't get to see that. But the one question I have for you is
I had a dreadful jumper on.
It was the 70s, man. Like, everyone did.
And very large bell-bottom jeans.
That don't knock them because I'd still.
I look like a kid that's on the front cover of a lot of the vintage boxes.
See, this upsets me because that just sounds so cool. But yeah, do you remember? You obviously remember watching it the first time. Do you remember if the lack of credits and that threw you? Did this throw you when that first, the first notes of that orchestral score come in and that crawl started to come up? Did it knock you back a bit? Going, wow,
it blew you away.
Yeah,
like nothing it ever had done before. I think the only time you got that was from Super Mario Nation and the Thunderbirds theme starting because it was very loud and brash and and the countdown 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and this was just incredible. And the size of the ship, and then the opening of the tentative, or the capturing of the tentative 5 going inside the Imperial cruiser and seeing those rebels in anticipation. And, I mean, just first time we ever seen sort of laser bolts. And,
I mean,
just that whole, the first 10 minutes is just exhilarating.
It's relentless, isn't it? The first 10
And then
minutes.
there's this quiet moment when you see Leia and R2 and you think, you thought, well, what's she doing? What's she doing with that droid? And before you know it, she's stunned and brought in front of this big dark.
And she's referred to as the princess at that point, isn't she?
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously straight away that there's some weight there, right? Yeah, you're a lucky man. You really are to have seen that at that time, because this is something I'll never get to. I think the closest I ever got was The Force Awakens, because I don't think the prequels had that same weight because they were. We knew the story to a degree. Whereas The Force Awakens, none of us knew what we were going into, but then we still had Star Wars, so we didn't really get to have that same sense of feeling, which is a shame. But even now, those first notes of that score coming in and those words coming up, even now to me, that still brings the hairs up on my arms, and I'm sure it does for you. Yeah, as soon as you hear that, you know that for the next hour and a half, you're going to be having fun.
It's an incredible moment, I think, when cinema changes your life.
Luke Skywalker and Han Solo rescued the princess, destroyed the Death Star, but their story didn't end there. Now, the creators of the biggest smash hit of all time bring you the next episode in the Star Wars saga, The Empire Strikes Back. The continuing story of our band of heroes: Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia, Han Solo, C-3PO, R2-D2, and Chewbacca. And introducing Lando Calrissian. It's an epic of romance, of heroes and villains, they cross trackless voids to unknown worlds. A galactic odyssey against oppression. A big, new, sprawling space adventure in the Star Wars saga, The Empire Strikes Back. Coming to your galaxy next summer.
So, Andy, The Empire Strikes Back. This, for a lot of people, is their best and favourite Star Wars film. This clinches it just above Return of the Jedi for you, or Return of the Jedi is still...
Return of the Jedi #1 for me.
So, this middle story was... I remember it being a very similar vein to how a lot of people reacted to The Last Jedi. It wasn't my favourite for a long time. It was always A New Hope. It was always Star Wars and Return of the Jedi because of the lightness, I think. And it's only in a more mature mind that you really understand the sort of the myth, or the myths, if you like, that are involved in Empire, especially on Dagobah. But I think the opening part of Empire, Hoth, has got to be some of the greatest scenes that Star Wars has ever had to offer.
This is it. This is the thing. Return of the Jedi is my favourite Star Wars film, but I can't deny that Empire's a better movie.
It's a fantastically beautiful film, and Krishna did an incredible job. And isn't it amazing that he handed it over to his mentor?
Yeah. And let's be honest, who did it better? I know you prefer Star Wars, but in my eyes, it's that they go backwards for me. I prefer, Return, Empire, Star Wars. That's how they are for me. It may be. I just think Star Wars is. Well,
Star Wars finished for me with medals. That's how it finished for me. The story was complete.
Yeah.
He'd got the Excalibur that was his father's. He'd been taught the certain parts and ways of the Force.
Yeah.
He'd met new friends. They'd blown up the Death Star.
He was a Jedi, and it was all good, and everyone was happy, and
they get their medals. Story's over, and then you went on to watch many films for the next 3 years before bingo, we got this new film.
The tonal shift of The Empire Strikes Back. I mean, exactly that. You end on that movie, everything's hunky dory, everything is great, and we start off The Empire Strikes Back on a frozen wasteland planet where this rebel group is still struggling against the might of the Empire. And at that point, you're thinking, oh, damn, this was supposed to be all good. They were supposed to be all, we won the war and everything. Actually, you think about it, logistically, if they can build a Death Star, losing one isn't going to really dent them that much, is it? So, yeah, I mean, there is some beautiful, beautiful shots in this. From the offset as well, we are treated to some great creatures. I mean, like I say, I'm a massive fan of the creatures of Star Wars, and we get that Tauntaun, and that even looks great now, man.
Oh, doesn't it?
That looks
Still
brilliant
does, yeah.
now. You know, we see Han again doing what Han does best. You know, he's like, well, where's Luke? He hasn't come back yet. Well, why haven't you gone and got him? You know, and he's just like, I'm going to go out and get him. Are you going to freeze? Well, so what? Like, it's my friend. This is Han through and through. I will do whatever it takes to save the people that need saving. And I love that. I mean, when you ask me about my favourite scene, inevitably it's, or favourite scenes in this, there's too many in this movie.
Yes, there are.
Because there is so much goes on in this.
I mean, essentially, we've got Hoth, we have Dagobah, we have Cloudsick Bespin.
Yeah.
And those 3 locations are so diverse, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Frozen Wasteland.
White and sparse to dark and brown and muddy and
to sunlit and beautiful and clean.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's what a film, man. I mean,
the opening crawl, it's a dark time for rebellion. Straight away you're like, how can it be a dark time? We've just seen 3 medals awarded and a Death Star blown up.
Yeah.
But it said it's a dark time for the rebellion. Although the Death Star has been destroyed, Imperial troops have driven the rebel forces from their hidden base and pursued them across the galaxy. Evading the dreaded Imperial Starfleet, a group of freedom fighters led by Luke Skywalker has established a new secret base on the remote ice world of Hoth. The evil Lord Darth Vader, obsessed with finding
evil Lord Darth Vader,
has dispatched thousands of remote probe droids into the far reaches of space. And that's where we see little Chewie pop his little head up and Han pop his little head up and blast that thing. And
I love that probe droid.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, I mean, this is one of these things where...
What do you think he says? Because it does sound English, doesn't it, that probe droid?
There he is.
Play some
I've
defender.
seen one of them.
Play some defender.
There he is.
That's
I've
right.
seen one of them. They're over there. Quick, get them. Oh, crap. That's what he says.
At the time, I was absolutely mad on that arcade game, Defender. And that's what I'm swore it. That's what he was saying. Play some defender.
Play some defender. Yeah. I just love that design. I think these are the things when I look at Star Wars, this is what makes it timeless, is the design. That is something that if I saw that in a movie now, I think I'd still enjoy it. I think I'd go, wow, look at that. You know, that's things are too Apple these days. They're too everything. You showed me before we started recording, the Oblivion.
Yeah.
A Blu-ray that you got. Those probes that come down in that, they're these big white shiny iPod looking things. There's nothing special about them. They're forgettable. These probe droids has got so much character. These little legs and it looks great, man. It even looks great now, and
looks very Imperial, doesn't it?
Yeah, they've all got their own.
Like it's been created by some guys who've just stuck it all together and sent them out.
Yeah, it's great stuff.
One of the things we get in this film is the first time we see the connection between Luke and Leia, don't we?
Yes. Yes.
That kiss after being bashed by the Wampa and then taken on board. Is it the Tantive they go back on? I don't know what ship they go back on.
I'm not sure. Yeah.
Sport or something. And he has his kiss, which we now found out was not quite appropriate.
Yeah. Well, yeah, not quite appropriate. Yeah, I think that's an understatement.
Surely, though, 3PO would have said something there. When you think, excuse me, Mr.
that would be your sister. Yeah, maybe 3PO liked it. I don't know.
We did get 21B, which is a great droid. In when he's being fixed up by
the medical droid, isn't it?
Medical droid. I did love that droid. It's still one of my favourite figures, actually, in my collection.
This is what I think Empire did. I mean, I know we had the cantina scene, But really, in A New Hope, that was the sort of the majority of the creatures, wasn't it? The cantina scene. I mean, as soon as we come off of Tatooine, we're thrown on the Death Star, and in the Rebel bases, there isn't really much else going on there with creatures.
It's mostly droids.
It's mostly humans. There's not really any alien species in there.
There's nothing on Cloud City, is there?
No.
Droids.
But you get into Empire, and it's all, I don't know, with the Wampers and the Tauntaun.
The Attack Walkers and Scouts. It's all vehicles.
There's so much more to this.
Yeah. In terms of toys-wise, I mean, a majority of my collection is from Empire, actually.
Yeah. Majority of mine when I was a kid, I mean, like I said, unfortunately, I lost all of mine. But the majority of mine were Empire, from Return of the Jedi.
The greatest toy and the greatest vehicle from this film is, without doubt, is a snow speeder, man. Yeah. I love that.
Do you know what?
It's not really it's an air speeder. It's not actually a snow speeder.
Yeah, this is a strange thing, because I always grew up playing with the monsters and the aliens. I had a Rancor, absolutely loved it. I still want to get my hands on one now. And I wasn't really one for ships, and I don't know what it is, but recently I started collecting the Hot Wheels, the die-cast Hot Wheels.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
They're cheap and cheerful, and I love them. And I have suddenly become a massive vehicle fanboy. Massive vehicle fanboy. Oh, look at that beautiful thing. Rebel Armoured Snowspeeder. And see, I have one of them in my Hot Wheels. And I've become a massive fan of ships and vehicles in the Star Wars world. And I think as I've grown up and I've started to appreciate the actual design work that goes into them, and most of them have got good reasoning behind them.
Yeah, they do, don't they?
There's so much thought put into these worlds that was created in these.
Well, it's all Macquarie's
things.
Work. This.
Yeah.
This is why these three films really stand out so much more than anything else, is because of Ralph McQuarrie's artwork. I mean, there was some of that, I think, certainly in Force Awakens. I still think there was some of the troopers, the snow troopers' helmets, but mostly, I mean, this is really where we see prototype Boba Fett come to life in a Boba Fett. We get amazing bounty hunters on board Vader's Imperial cruiser. I mean, that's one of my favourite scenes in this film. Is that meeting of the bounty hunters and that line, "No disintegrations this time," which always makes me think that's what happened to Baru Owen.
Yep, totally. I don't deny that is the case. I think if you was to really ask him the question, he'd say, yeah, that's exactly what it meant. There's no other reason for that line to be there, aside from the fact that he knows that Boba Fett likes to disintegrate things. But we know
he picked up that transmission knowing too full well there's some missing droids. He's working for the Hutts.
We know Boba Fett was on that planet.
We do.
He was on Tatooine at the time that happened. We know full well that Imperial soldiers do not go in and burn families.
No, they don't do that. They questioned them. They said, we don't know where Luke is. We don't know where the droids are. They went happily on their way. Fett turns up, doesn't take no for an answer.
Yeah, he knows where they are. He knows. Or
he gets there before the troopers and said, well, we arrived. They were burnt to a crisp.
Yeah. Why would Imperial troopers do that? They wouldn't.
Exactly.
They didn't burn the Jawas' bodies, did they? When they attacked the Sandcrawler.
Well, do you think those stormtroopers slaughtered the Jawas? That. Do you think they didn't slaughter the Jawas?
Yeah, I think they did that, but Ben was just weird and decided to set them all on fire himself for some reason. Instead of going, I'll leave this here to, for their families to pick them up, I'm going to throw them in a pile and burn them. But yeah, there was that line, no disintegrations. There's so much meaning behind it, because it's not throwaway. It's centered right on those characters as he does that, and Do
you think really that the first time that Han sees Boba Fett is obviously standing behind Vader?
On Bespin, yeah.
Loud, be great if you could join us. And he's standing there, and he must think, well, who's this guy? So there is definitely some history there with Boba Fett.
Without doubt. without doubt. I mean, we know
He
that
has
they
connections.
have met.
He has connections with the Hutt himself.
We know they've met before anyway, because if you're going to go with the special editions, he's in that room when Jabba's talking to him, isn't he? He's in there at the docking bay. So they're aware of each other, but I do think there's deeper story there. I mean, isn't it Ord Mandel? There's a story, the offshoot in the comic between the two films where they're fully aware of each other. Now, whether that's canon or not, they know who each other is. I mean, Han Solo's Han Solo. He's a renowned smuggler. So I think that is probably why he pulls that gun out when that door opens, because he sees Boba Fett. I don't think it's to do with Vader. He wouldn't fight Vader. He knows full well that he's not going to win against him. I think when that door opens and Han sees Boba Fett standing there in the background, he's like, "We're screwed. This isn't a sit down and talk. This is we're dead. You don't bring your bounty hunter with you. We ain't leaving this room." And that's
they need to eat, especially for Vader. He can't get anything through that mouth grill.
He's got a straw. They blend it for him. Like,
I think the other thing as well, which is very important to remember about Empire, is that George's teachings from Joseph Campbell, so much that goes on Dagobah is exactly what Joseph Campbell was teaching. Know who you are, and this whole revealing of Luke's face within Vader's helmet. It's very spiritual, all of that part, especially. So right in the middle of this film, we get a very significant, almost Buddhist, Hindu teaching of know who you are. And wherever you go, you take you with you. Yeah. And that's just what, Yoda is saying to Luke in the tree, you don't need your weapon. You take only yourself to the dark places within your mind. Which again, as a 10-year-old boy in 1980, he didn't get any of that. No, not at all. That's the part we probably thought, what the hell's going on here? What is that? Does that mean?
Yeah, you don't get the context of this is what you'll become, and everything.
And no judging by size, and again, Yoda's whole, well, who do you think you're looking for as this great Jedi? And there's just this little green
that is
sitting
my
on
favourite scene in the whole of The Empire Strikes Back is that when he first meets Yoda, when Luke's giving it the brash, impatient,
we haven't got time for
young
this.
lad, and Yoda could have broken that at any point, but he thinks, I'm going to play with this kid here, and I love it. When he's sitting there and he's banging R2 and he's fighting with him, he's playing him for a fool, and he's, it's that whole. It's that I'm going to see how far I can push this kid and see how immature and how childish he is and how much patience he doesn't have. And I just love that bit when he does break character.
It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah.
And then he calls out to Obi-Wan. And that's where we hear, Alec Guinness again.
That's the point, I think, as well, where you suddenly realise how powerful Yoda is at that point, because the way he kind of speaks to Obi-Wan as well is there's an air of seniority to him there as well. He even says, I can't teach this one. I'll be our last tape. Whatever. He's not having none of it. It's just like, no, you're wrong again. You said, you brought Anakin up, and look what happened with that one. In hindsight, there's more to that conversation, but that is. The meeting of Yoda is one of the greatest scenes in the whole of the Star Wars saga. It really is for me. I love that. And the video that comes from it with seagulls. I don't know if you've seen that.
Many a time.
Fantastic. But yeah, and he's one of the greatest characters ever created for screen as well. So
we get the fantastic line as well, don't we? No, there is another.
Mm-hmm. And that tracking shot with the light as he's flying away, because obviously leaves. I love that shot. I love that red light just moving over him as he says it, and the music coming up. It's fantastic bit of cinema. That it really is. That's one of those defining moments in cinema.
Can you remember how you felt once Luke had arrived, and we had Lando double-crossing Han and Leia, and the encounter between Luke and Vader commences. I mean, the colours, the red, the orange, the glow of the sabers, and then, when the inevitable happens and there's the big reveal. Can you remember that? Well, how old were you when you heard that?
I must have been. I do remember watching Empire for the first time. It was a Christmas at my grandparents' house, and I must have been about 6. And the scene that stands in my mind is Yoda meeting Yoda on Dagobah. I do remember the door opening and being double crossed, and the whole "we'd be honoured if you would join us." I remember audibly gasping. I do remember that. Oh my God, this is, obviously you don't understand situations as well at that age, as you do now. But I do remember feeling like the world had been torn apart. Like, where does this go? They're backed into a corner. There's no way out of this. Like, they're stuck on a floating city with no means of escape. C-3PO had just been blown up. This is the end. And I mean, as a child, like I say, it's one of those dark moments. You don't really understand the weight of the situation. And I've never really forgiven Lando for this. There's like you say, that trust is broken between people. There ain't no going back to that. And I understand that he himself was backed into a corner and was probably playing the scoundrel route of, we'll sort this out when and where we can sort this out. It's best to lay down my sword one day and fight to, live to fight another day. But how'd you do that against the might of Darth Vader and the Empire? It was one of those, like, you've just ruined everything. They're all going to die. So yeah, I do kind of remember.
I love Lando's connection with Lobot as well. I think that's another great little kind of duo, the two of them. He doesn't say anything, yet he understands completely what's going on. I love Lobot. He was such a great character.
There's the scene, isn't there, on Bespin where Luke's hiding and Boba Fett walks past and he just turns his head slightly. Have you noticed it? He turns his head slightly. Do you think that was intentional?
Yes. Oh, yes.
The storytelling, I do as well. Yeah. I do. Yeah. Absolutely. He knew he was there, which brings more to Boba Fett as well. There's something more there. He knows that Luke's hiding around that corner. But this is kind of where, to be honest with you.
Well, if it's, if we're going to sort of theorize that Boba Fett has kept his eye on this boy, but more importantly, he's kept an eye on Obi-Wan Kenobi, then he knows exactly who Skywalker is.
Yeah. Well, he would do as well. I mean, you're talking about he met Obi-Wan as a young boy back on is it Camino, isn't it?
That's right.
Yeah. He met him as a young boy on Camino.
You know who he is.
Yeah, he knows who he is. He knows full well what should have happened.
Cut his dad's head off.
Yeah.
Well, no, he didn't actually. It was Mace, but he nearly killed him on the rooftop.
So it's one of those. He's fully aware who Obi-Wan is. He's probably more than fully aware of who Luke is. And if he has been on Tatooine and he's a bounty hunter, he's got ways and means. He knows Obi-Wan's
He doesn't like Jedi very much.
Not at all.
That's for sure. The Jedi killed his father.
So why, if we can theorise, why do you think he kind of acknowledged to himself that he knew Luke was there? Do you think he was going to go for him himself?
Well, at the end of the day, his plan was to deliver Han to Jabba. So Luke doesn't really mean much to him. He knows that that's Vader's winnings, but he knew he was there. Of course, he did. Well, I think the saddest point really is this this moment when Leia feels Luke, when Luke is calling to Leia. That to me, just even now, still really gets to me. That the desperation. He's lost his hand. He's just found out who his father is. It must be hugely devastating. And he reaches out, and it's just don't know if it gets you.
Do you think at that point because obviously Lucas didn't know that Luke and Leia were brother and sister at this point. Did he? At this point, is he?
It was very much done, wasn't it? Right, very last minute, and this is where it gets very, very difficult to sort of talk about if your name's David Prowse.
Yeah,
because he had his script, he had his lines, and he said them, and of course, then we get Earl Jones talking over the top of him.
Yeah.
So there's no way Dave Prowse could have known what was being said because it was all done post.
Yeah.
So the story goes that the big reveal made it into the newspapers. I think it was the Daily Mail, and immediately Lucas thought, well, that must be Dave Prowse, and which is why Dave Prowse has never been to any of the Star Wars celebrations. Has never been Dave Prowse is Darth Vader. It's always, well, there's Dave, it's Earl Jones. And this is why, Dave Prowse always writes Dave Prowse is Darth Vader, because he is Darth Vader.
Yeah.
He didn't spoil that, without a doubt. It wasn't him. Someone somewhere leaked that, but it wasn't him.
Yeah.
And,
I do feel sorry for him for that, because this is a legacy that he should have been able to enjoy, like everyone else has. But yeah, I'm talking about the relationship between Luke and Leia, though, brother and sister. Was that decided at this point in story making? Was it?
I think it was, yeah.
Yeah, because it's definitely cemented in that last moment now,
because
where he calls out to her.
I don't think he would have allowed the kiss to have happened quite so strong.
Yeah, but he let Splinter of the Mind's Eye happen.
Well, he did. Well, yeah, but that wasn't anything to do with Lucas, was it? That was
Alan Dean Foster, wasn't it?
Indeed.
Yeah.
So your pinnacle moment of that film is
meeting Yoda. I think. I think that whole scene on Dagobah, down to him going into the forest alone, lifting the X-wing out of the swamp. There's just some great moments in there. I mean, I love Yoda anyway as a character, because I think it's such a clever way of explaining how the Force works.
And also, if you put your mind to it, you can do anything.
Yeah,
no obstacle is too big.
That's my point. It shows how it's a clever way of storytelling on how the Force works. Because let's be honest, if Yoda come up to you in the street and wanted to start a rumble, you'd probably laugh and toe punt him across the road. But that ain't gonna happen, because this little 2 foot tall green little tiny green dude, he's more powerful than anything you can imagine, and not only through strength and guile, but through mind and soul. This is, he's been living in exile for how many years on his own on a swamp planet, and he still has got his faculties about him. Yerike may not be completely 100% sane, but he's 900 years old, and he's seen some things, man, over the years, and he's so powerful, and he's tiny, and it just goes to show that, judge me by my size, do you? It doesn't matter with the Force how big you are, how small you are, how strong you are. It's about the Force and how you utilize that, and it's a great way of storytelling. It's too often the trope of, D&D. Look at it. I mean, the tropes of D&D are thrown into every fantasy thing. Oh, you're strong and powerful. You're a warrior. You've got a big sword and lots of muscles and a 6-pack. Oh, you're a wizard, are you? Well, you're tall, skinny, and got a big beard and a hat. And none of that matters with Star Wars. Especially with Yoda. There's this little green guy, and he is all powerful. This is a guy that I think could probably go toe to toe against Anakin back in the day, and he probably would have won. Yeah. So yeah, that's why I love that scene so much, is because it gives depth to the Force in the, like you say, the visions. It gives depth to the Force in power and strength through Yoda, and it gives Luke the lesson that he needs to become more than he is. Because at this point, he may be a great pilot. He may be pretty adept at the Force at this point and willing to learn. But he's still a little oik that is willing to kick up a fuss You know, he's, I haven't got time for this. Like, just, you've got to learn that, you know, the Force is something to be respectful of and to learn. And it doesn't matter about all of these other things that you think you know. There are people out there like Yoda. This is Yoda. This little green guy is Yoda, and he will teach you more than you can ever imagine. And that's why I love that scene.
My favourite scenes are the escaping from Hoth on the Falcon and Leia's confrontation with Han on board the Falcon, and then the asteroids and going into the asteroid, being chased by those TIE fighters. I love all that.
That's
space
cool
slug.
Yeah. So my friend of mine, he loves that scene with Han and Leia arguing in that corridor, because he brought it out to me, and big shout out to Charlie for this one, because it's a great scene that they're arguing, and this guy literally, you mean the Princess Leia, and he just walks between them. He doesn't go behind them or say excuse me. He just pushes them out of the way and walks through. It's like, I have seen this crap so often with these two arguing and moaning at each other. I've got things to do, like, and I love that bit. It's not like excuse it. It's just like, just get out of the way, because them two are at it again. And yeah, it's a great little scene, that, you know, that whole scruffy looking, and yeah, it's brilliant. That
there was a moment as well when they're on Hoth base, and that rebel trooper walks through them as well, while they're having another little Barney.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, not these two again. I love that scene. But one of the scenes I really love is the final couple of shots with Luke trying out his new hand, pulling down his sleeve, and then joining Leia, putting his arm around her, and they're just looking out that window, and we get that pan away from them and see the rebel transports as they
beautiful, that shot.
Space, isn't it? Just stunning.
That's desktop wallpaper, isn't it? They're looking through the porthole and out to the galaxy. Yeah,
indeed.
It's phenomenal.
Let's now go on to Return of the Jedi.
Return for the climactic clash between the forces of good and evil. Return to a galaxy far, far away. Return of the Jedi. The next chapter in the continuing Star Wars saga. The battle for freedom rages on. The heart of a hero. The courage of a rebel. The strength of a leader. The loyalty of comrades. The power of the Force. The cunning of the enemy. A destiny revealed.
Is Darth Vader my father?
A legend fulfilled. An epic of heroes, villains, and aliens from 1,000 worlds.
It's a trap!
The quest continues. The circle closes. The saga lives on. Return of the Jedi begins May 25th at a theater in your galaxy.
So, Return of the Jedi. Its opening scene. Can you remember its opening scene of Return of the Jedi?
Yep, it's is it not R2 and 3PO walking towards Jabba's palace?
It is indeed.
It is indeed, yes.
Yeah. Now, what we could have had,
Blinky,
which we didn't get, was the deleted scene with Luke building his saber in that cave.
I wish we did.
I think we could have done with that, couldn't we?
Yeah, I think that's modern Star Wars storytelling.
For me, that is knowing all those deleted scenes, that is the one that should have been left in there.
Yeah, like I say, that's modern Star Wars storytelling. These are the things of myth and that we know now through expanded storytelling. That's the thing with Star Wars. The original trilogy is very streamlined. It does the point of the story, and there's not much exposition. where we get a lot of exposition now in storytelling, in Star Wars storytelling. We had it with the prequels and we have it with the new films. There's things in there that, not that they don't need to be there, but they don't add or take away from the story. That is something that would not add or take away from the story, because we know it doesn't, because we know that it doesn't take away, because we've seen it without it. With it in there, it would have been really nice to see. I think it would have given people, general public that don't read expanded or know expanded storytelling, would give them an understanding of how lightsabers work and what they mean to a Jedi. You know, we know, oh yeah, your father created that. That's all we know about them. That's all.
It would have also shown as well how much more teaching Luke had from Yoda.
Yeah.
In that time and space that between Empire and Return of the Jedi. So we get to see Jabba's palace for the first time. We get to see Salacious Crumb. We see Boba Fett in there. We see the dancers. We get the Rancor. We get to see Leia in her briefs.
Yep.
And I did think to myself, you know, well, she gave up, you know, herself pretty easily, you know, but the whole Boosh thing was just fantastic, wasn't it?
Yeah, wasn't it just?
Bringing Chewie. I mean, it was like, you know, if Luke had a plan, it seemed to go a bit skew-if at times. But, you know, overall, he'd have perceived this whole idea that, don't worry, I'm going to destroy it all on a salvage. When little R2 is going to fire my lightsaber up into the air, I'm going to catch it.
It's very, it's a real last minute plan, wasn't it? Like, if anything went wrong there, it went wrong.
It did.
But I do, and we could skip to that part where Luke first enters and he meets Bib Fortuna and he gets through. But this is the point where, this is what I was making earlier with Star Wars about the three heroes, and where Luke is actually on the cusp of being either. And I mean, we see it here more than we see it ever in Star Wars.
Yeah,
up to this point, obviously we see it later on through things. But he walks in, he force chokes some Gamorrean guards, uses some Jedi mind trick on Bib Fortuna. I mean, these are all dark side powers, well, you know, not the mind trick, but force choke. Like,
he does pull out a blaster as well, which is an unusual move for a Jedi, isn't it?
Isn't it just? But it's just, this whole scene is Luke, I think maybe he doesn't go in with a plan necessarily, but he's gone in with the plan of, I'm getting them out of there no matter what it takes, even if I have to slaughter the whole lot of them. And that isn't exactly a Jedi way, because that's what he's doing. He's going in there, he's going to get his sister out, he's going to get his friend out, and he's going to do it no matter what it takes.
Well, we also know that Lando had his outfit on board the Falcon the whole time.
Now I love that. That was good. Stuff beautiful. Like that is cool. That's like a great that is cool.
Continuity, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, you know,
if only George could have learned from this.
Yeah, we get the salvage. We get the demise of our beloved Boba Fett going into the Sarlacc pit, or did he? And then we get a deleted scene, which was removed, where they get to say goodbye and in a sandstorm. And there's another deleted scene that I thought, well, actually, that could have really been great for them to say, you know, thanks again for saving my bacon, and great to see you, Luke. Thanks for everything. I'll see you again soon. But they cut that part out, and we just get a little brief kind of see you later. I'll join you later. I've just got to say goodbye to an old friend. And we see a very old Yoda starting to let go of the Force. I
don't want to think about it.
It's really quite something, that, isn't it?
It's beautiful.
And Luke, or Mark Hamill's acting in this film is just phenomenal. And his look he gives Yoda when he slowly absorbs the information that Yoda has given him, that there is another Skywalker.
Yeah.
And then just watches him just drift away. It's very beautiful. It's really beautiful. And the little light on his little hut goes out. It's very sweet.
They use a lot of lighting tricks with Yoda, don't they? A lot of lighting tricks. Like I say, that tracking shot over him with the X-Wing leaving. And then, like you say, this light going out there. But that's another thing I really like about the way the Jedi go when they become one with the Force. There's a difference. They're not getting...
It's letting go.
Yeah, it's letting go. He's 900 years old. He doesn't want to know anymore. He's done
something
his part.
That all human beings need to learn, isn't it? That sort of at the imminent moment when we're about to let go of our mortal selves, that we don't hold on to anything anymore, that we let go fully.
Yeah.
Meditation, a lot of meditation is about really letting go of your physical self and who you think you are, and being at one with everything, even if it's just for a very brief moment in time, where you're actually not really thinking to yourself, am I meditating? Because if you're thinking, am I meditating?
You're not letting go.
You're not letting go. Yeah. So it's very poignant and very beautiful. So from that point,
that got a bit deep there, didn't it? So.
I love all the depth of Star Wars. It's fantastic.
Here,
So then we then go on to the space shuttle, the shuttle Tiberian, and the Endor bunker, and getting onto Endor, we get the speeder bike chase. Now,
I love it.
The way they filmed that, I love always making of and B-roll stuff, but I love the way that they created that fast-paced.
Do you know, sometimes we go for walks in the woods and I still run through there pretending I'm on a speeder bike. Even now, I'll make the noises and I'll duck my head from side to side.
Well, they've always been my favourite troopers, is the Biker Scout.
Yeah, same here, mate. Same here. It's one of the only figs I have, original figs, as a Biker Scout fig, and I love them. They are a brilliant design.
The Biker Scout and the speeder bike.
That pops apart. Yeah, I used to have one of them. That got thrown away somewhere. Yeah.
Always missing the flaps. They're always missing the flaps.
I had my flaps.
So we get that. We get to we see Leia meet a Wicket.
Yeah, love them.
Yeah, and we get to also find out that they're not the sort of friendly, cuddly creatures that we think they really are, do we? Because they were going to be eaten.
This is what I always say about Ewoks. People go about, these little fluffy, cute teddy bears. They were going to eat them, and when they actually take down the Empire, they are playing drums on the skulls of their dead enemies. They are not nice little guys. Like, regardless of what you may think on the surface, they are savage.
They're all savages.
Yeah. You say about you were saying about the probe droid, about it speaking English.
Yes.
Did you know there is a point where the Ewoks do speak English?
No, go on, tell me.
Well, when 3PO first sits up in the bushes, you know, when they get taken up in the thing, don't they? They cut themselves down because Chewie's an idiot. Bless him. One of them sits up, you see 3PO sits up, and there's all this noise, and one of the Ewoks turns to the other one and goes, "That guy's wise." And the other Ewok says, "More than I am short."
I've never heard that.
You go back and watch it. And
I will. I've never heard that.
Yeah,
Thanks for that.
That guy's wise, more than I am short. Yeah. So
I'm not going to go to bed tonight until. So, meanwhile, we get Luke going to give himself up, and this is where we start to get the redemption story, and Luke being incredibly brave, knowing that he has to face Vader again, and we see the Emperor in all his glory. I mean, this is the film where we really see the Emperor. We see him arrive on the new Death Star. He wants it finished. And we get to see the Empire really starting to be pretty heavy-handed.
I found him so menacing when I was a child. Vader, I always had that, like I say, kids love bad guys.
He's no longer Sidious at this point, though, is he? He's not Darth Sidious now. He's
the Emperor.
Just the Emperor.
Yeah. And I, as a kid, I always saw Vader as like, oh, cool, it's the bad guy. I love him. Yeah, he's scary, but it's, whatever. It's Vader is the bad guy. He's going to get beaten by Luke because that's how stories work, But then this other player comes in, this hooded, disfigured, scary-looking old man. And he's Vader's boss. He controls Vader. I mean, if Vader's scary, then what's this guy? And Luke was going to beat Vader because that's what we expected. And all of a sudden, there's this other player, and I'm thinking as a kid, like, whoa, like what are we going to do here? This is something else. And yeah, he's menacing, man. I remember that as a kid, menacing.
Well, he's Emperor and the Royal Guard as well.
Yeah,
all in red. Didn't see too much of them. But enough.
Yeah, with this
We
Star
also
Wars.
we see the reveal as well, don't we? We see Vader with his helmet off.
In the chamber. Yeah. Is that in this one?
We
The
see
back of
that
his head?
Empire. We see that Empire, but
you don't see the face though, do you? You see the back
really,
of the
again,
head. Yeah.
you know, that's another sad thing, isn't it? Is that again, should that have been Dave Prowse with the reveal?
Yeah, I mean, how many people was it? 4?
Only makeup. It's only makeup.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I will back Prowse up. That it's horrible what happened, but if he'd have hated it that much, what had happened to him and the way he'd been treated, why would he have continued to do the movies? So there must have been some reason. There must have been some more love there than he lets on now. Maybe time has been a bit more, has made him a bit more. You know, it's skewed his view a little bit about that time working on those movies, because he clearly was happy to continue those roles. I mean, it was, I think, 4 people have played Vader in these movies, is it?
Yeah,
you know, we had Sebastian Shaw, wasn't it, as Vader, as Anakin at the end. And then we had Prowse being the body, James Earl Jones being the voice, and then was it somebody else doing the visual Vader? Was it Shaw before he went with all these prosthetics on as Vader? It wasn't, was it?
You've got me there.
Yeah, 'cause I'm not sure. It's 3 or 4 people, but I mean,
It certainly is.
Let's be honest. I mean, I think, yes, you can tell that it's not Dave Prowse in that suit in Rogue One because of the gait and the way he walks. But if you'd have changed that in Empire to be someone else, you wouldn't have lost anything from it, I don't think. And I'm not taking away anything from Dave Prowse, because he did make that character his own. His voice doesn't work for the character. I think this is one thing George Lucas maybe called right. He just went the wrong way about it. Yeah. It's.
How about the scene where Luke and Leia are talking, and Leia says, "Luke, what's wrong?" And Luke says, "Do you remember your mother, your real mother?" "Just a little bit. She died when I was very young." "What do you remember?" "Just images, really, feelings." "Tell me." "She was very beautiful, kind, but..." "And why are you asking me this?" "I have no memory of my mother. I never knew her." "Luke, tell me, what's troubling you?" "Vader is here. Now. On this moon." Well, he doesn't even actually tell her, does he? He just sort of goes straight to Vader's ear. It's like, well, why don't you just spit it out? But he doesn't, you know.
Yeah.
Just thinks about, I can feel his presence, and as long as I stay here, I'm endangering the group and everything else. And you think, well, why doesn't he tell her now? This is surely the time to sort of spit it out. But
maybe he's not 100% sure. That's
he just
what
says,
I think.
"He's my father," and your father, and there's more. It won't be easy for you to hear, and then, you know. But he just.
Does he say, "Ask me again sometime," doesn't he, or something like
Well,
that? You know,
she just says, "Don't talk to me this way. You have the power I don't understand and can never have. And no, you're wrong, Leia. You have that power too. In time, you'll learn to use it as I have." Well, she certainly did, as we found out in Last Jedi.
Very much.
"The Force is strong in my family. My father has it. I have it, and my sister has it." And that was just. It's you, Leia.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. Sorry, Han said it. She says to Han,
It's
doesn't she,
just.
about
Oh man, I mean,
it's
it's just like, well, why doesn't she tell Han? That's the thing. It's just, but then it must have been so hard for her to take this.
Maybe she's still digesting that. The
guy that she's been, wanting to destroy, and everything that sort of surrounds Vader is her father as well. And
she's got a lot of emotions to deal with right there at that moment. And in true Leia fashion, she's doing it in the most dignified way. She's not falling apart, and
makes you wonder whether she saw that, whether that was added to the script again right at the last minute, because that is just as big a reveal as, "No, Luke, I'm your father."
Yeah, but I think maybe at this point Leia knows that none of this matters. The story still, the outcome has to be the same. She's dealing with a lot of emotion. She's going to go about it the way she has to, and she'll bring this up when and where she's ready to, because it's Leia. She's one of the strongest. She's the strongest character with a backbone in these series of films, isn't she? We know that. she saved those lads on a couple of occasions in the first movie. If it wasn't for her, they'd be done for. And I just think Leia probably doesn't care, maybe. She just doesn't care that she cares that Luke's her brother. She cares that the things that have happened in the past. But as for the outcome, she's got to do what she's got to do, and she's going to let Luke do it because that's the only way that can happen. Mm-hmm. And this is Leia through and through. She's as much as she's a warrior, she's a diplomat, and she's a politician, and she knows exactly what's got to happen. So.
We have one thing we do have in this film is probably the most famous line of this film, and probably has become just as famous as "May the Force be with you." It follows the line of from Admiral, "We have enemy ships in Sector 47." Do you know what the next line is? It's a trap.
Yeah, it's a trap. Yeah,
It's great seeing Admiral Akbar, isn't it? I mean, whenever he's on screen, you're not only are you watching him, but you're watching that guy in the background who can't see a bloody thing. He's wandering backwards and forwards, looking aimlessly at stuff, which is just fantastic.
I love some of these things in Star Wars. It's one of the ones where I think it's in A New Hope where Vader turns around to shout at someone and he is in their face, and the guy, fair play to him, doesn't break character. He's just like, oh, crap, and he's pointing at him, and Prowse manages to stay in character as well at that point. But this not being able to see anything, one of my favourite outtake reels is watching those stormtroopers trying to get through that door on the Tantive. Just every time it's like, go, and they just fall through, and one of them tries 4 or 5 times to get his leg over, and he stacks it, but they still stay in character. They're still going for it, I think they should have kept it in, personally.
So we get this amazing fight scene on Endor with the ATSTs and the Ewoks, and then we've also got this incredible space battle. Now, how long do you think that took to film, where you've got the Falcon flying towards us, and there's just it seems like 1,000 ships fighting each other above Endor? I mean, that is some scene, isn't it?
That wasn't it the most visual effects heavy scene ever filmed at that point in Hollywood, because of the actual amount of work that had to go in? Because nowadays they just throw up a load of CGI. I mean, that was models, that was acetate, that was film spliced on film. That was amazing. That is just some real clever editing there, and some real clever work there.
Meanwhile, on the bunker, we get Leia getting shot in the arm, and Han wants to have a look at her wound, and she says, "Oh, it's not bad," and freeze. And 3PO says, "Oh dear." "Don't move," says the stormtrooper, and Han turns once again and says, "I love you," and Leia says, "I know."
See, this is what I mean. What?
It's just fabulous.
What a girl, man. She is like, that is some progressive character writing for the time. I mean, we're talking, this is an era of, damsels in distress. Every woman seems to fall over, twist their ankle and need help from the hero. Like, that's Leia. That's Leia through and through. I love that. That's so tongue in cheek. Yeah, I love you. Yeah, I know.
I like the diversity, because we've got back on the Emperor's ship. We've got Vader and Luke and the Emperor enticing them to fight,
being quite civil as well. Vader and Luke at that point,
absolutely. And you've got Leia and Han having a sentimental moment. You've got Lando leading the attack, which doesn't seem to be going quite to plan as the Emperor is envisaged.
Do you know, I've always seen that scene though of Luke turning up with Vader as almost Luke weighing up his options. Rather than going in there to kill, to destroy it, it's almost he's gone there to talk him off a ledge, and see where this can go. That's why he's being diplomatic. He's not going in there. They're standing in that lift. He gives him his lightsaber. He's like, right, let's talk. And
do you think Luke would ever have struck the Emperor down? Because he goes for his saber and goes for the strike. But
to save his father, I think he would have done.
Yeah.
I think had Vader have turned around at that point and gone, do you know what, Luke, you're right. Had it have not come to the point that it did where Vader was gone for, And I think if he'd have been on the floor and Luke had had that killing blow, he would have taken it to save his father. Because he knows that, I mean, we know now from expanded storytelling what the Emperor put Vader through, you know, making him build his castle on Mustafar where he got burned and making him, you know, relive those memories. The Sheev Palpatine is a sick, twisted, evil individual. And Anakin, we know, has good in him. You know, like they say, I know he's got good in him. I can feel it. He has. He's unfortunately just been through a load of crap in the process. And, you know, we see from Luke, they've all got that dark side in them. Mace Windu trained in the dark arts, you know, but they know there's that part of them that can fall to that side of the Force. And Luke goes there knowing that he wants to save his father. He doesn't want to kill him, but I think had the Emperor have tried, he would have done.
There's a great connection with Snoke here too, I think, is because Snoke was, you know, constantly talking down to Kylo, Ben, and then upping him again, and then talking down to him, then upping him again, and he does that with Vader a lot.
It's mind games. It's controlling behaviour. It's that whole I've got you on a leash, and that's what they've done. I mean, that's the whole Sith master and apprentice thing anyway, isn't it? You know, they know full well that they're training them up to one day kill them, and they're going to have some fun in that process. And there is I've never, to be honest with you, until you've pointed that, I've never noticed those comparisons before with Snoke, but we'll never see where that one goes now.
Well, we've not seen the Emperor since Return of the Jedi, so we can only presume that his demise down the chasm was it for him. And the feeling of elation when Vader picks him up and just throws him over the edge, just what I remember those feelings, seeing that for the first time.
Yeah,
of just how, you know, how much pain Vader must have gone through, because obviously all that Force lightning is going through him, and it lit up his helmet, and you could see his face through it, the skull, and then he's just left as this wheezy half shell of a man, more robot than man, and meanwhile, you know, Lando is attacking the Death Star, and we get the reveal of Anakin when Vader's helmet comes off. And Luke, help me take this mask off, but you'll die. Nothing can stop that now. Just for once, let me look upon you with my own eyes. God, powerful stuff.
It's very powerful seeing that whole thing.
It's the sort of the recognition that Luke is his son when he says, you know, now go, my son, leave me. Yeah. You already have saved me, he says. You know, you were right about me. Tell your sister you were right. And it's just, it's heartwarming.
Mm-hmm. I mean, there is people out there that say this is a little fast and loose, isn't it? That it's, suddenly he's all okay with it. Vader has been having this inner fight with himself since the day he left Tatooine. You know, he knows he's got power, and he knows he was the chosen one. He's always been told that. Everyone has always led him down paths, and it took his son to make him realise his true worth in the galaxy, which is a shame that it was slightly too late. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, you know, Lando leads his squadron, blows up the Death Star, and we then go back to Endor, and we have the reveal from Leia to Han about that, you know, Luke is my brother.
Yeah.
And this sort of realization on Han's face, the confusion. What the hell?
Yeah. That's the face that I imagine Harrison Ford made when he was reading the script of Star Wars. That's yeah. But
powerful scene, though, the pyre, isn't it, as well, seeing Vader burning on that pyre.
Yeah, what is it with Jedis and burning things? I just want to...
It's just the way it goes, isn't it? It's just the way it goes. I mean, the special edition had a much more of a celebration afterwards, didn't it? Those celebratory scenes.
Yeah,
But
I didn't like it. It should have been the Nub Nub song.
But again, the rebels and the Ewoks joined together in, dancing and celebration. The original group of the adventurers watch from the sidelines. Only Luke seems distracted, alone in their midst, his thoughts elsewhere as he looks across and sees the two Force ghosts.
The two Force ghosts. Yeah. The three Force ghosts?
The three Force ghosts. The three Force ghosts.
Yeah.
Because you can just about see Yoda in the middle of them.
Yeah, bless him. I love little Yoda. I like the Hayden Christensen bit, to be honest with you, more than Sebastian Shaw.
I'm glad you say that, because
it makes more sense.
In the scheme of things, now we've got everything together, I think it makes more sense.
Of course it does. It's when he was at his last pure form of being good.
That's right.
Even though he repented at the end and realised he was in the wrong. He was still bad. He had still done those things. He had still killed a room full of children and decimated planets. You can't come back from that. He can realise the error of his ways. Had Vader have even lived through that, I don't think he would have wanted to live. Like, this was the end for Vader, and he knew that his way out of all of this was to die. Was whether it was to let go and die or to end himself. There was no way back from this. However, like, him being Hayden Christensen at this point was when he was the last time pure, the last time he was a Jedi before he made any mistakes. And that's why it works, man.
Let's refer then to recent news about Ewan McGregor. Because if you're talking, well, when was the last time that they were pure and at their best form? There is rumours that he's going to be appearing in Episode 9. And
Fantastic.
this probably explains why he was at the premiere of Last Jedi. Because he's going to be in Episode 9.
Well, let's be honest. We've got
You've
Yoda.
got Yoda.
We've got Luke as a Force Ghost now, and we've got Obi-Wan. There is the perfect way of doing this, isn't there? There's the Jedi. I mean, the training, like Jedi Temple. We can do this skip forward in time that they're talking about.
Rey has all the books.
Rey has all the books. She's started up a Jedi school somewhere, or a temple, or teaching. She's learning somewhere, and she's got these three of the best Jedis there has been, helping her on her journey. And I'm glad, if he is going to be in it, I'm glad of this, because it would seem wrong otherwise. We know that Luke has communed with Obi-Wan before as a Force Ghost. We've seen it. We've seen Obi-Wan turn up to him in the Force on Hoth, haven't we? He come through the snowstorm. If he doesn't turn up in this, why not? We've heard Obi-Wan speak to Rey through the Force already in Force Awakens.
Let's chuck this out there. Do you think that the three of them are going to defeat Kylo?
Well, that's how it was supposed to happen, wasn't it? In, what was it? Return of the Jedi? Was it Return of the Jedi? There was supposed to be a Force Ghost battle. And we know now that they're slightly more corporeal than we've ever been led to believe. I mean, Yoda smacks Luke with his stick. As a Force Ghost, we know they're capable of doing these things. I mean, Yoda brings down lightning storm, to take out a tree. There's more.
Do you think there's a possibility we might get Liam Neeson back?
Yes. I think there's a very good chance that we are going to be blown away by what we see in this next movie. We've had JJ already say that these films will bridge the gap between old and new.
Yep.
And the prequel trilogy.
Exactly.
This will tie all of them together.
I've been waiting to talk about this with you since we discussed sort of doing Star Wars, and I really do think that this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. And I think JJ will do it in a way that is not fan service as well. He's managed to, thus far, think, be the most sensitive one on that. There is some fan service in this movie. Of course there's going to be. We're fans of Star Wars and we want it. Regardless of whether or not it's a good or a bad thing, we want it. But yeah, I think we're going to get Jedi, plethora of Jedi, old and new, in Force Ghost form or not. It might even be like a council, like we see in the prequels, is sitting around in a tree somewhere, the 4 or 5 of them going, no, this is what you got to do, Rey. And that's cool, because that, it's not fan service, that's the storytelling, because these things happen in the Star Wars universe. There are Force ghosts. Then this stuff should happen, shouldn't it? Like,
it should.
By not having it in now, it kind of makes the other stuff slightly redundant in my eyes. That, why was Yoda talking to Obi-Wan as a Force ghost, but yet for some reason Luke couldn't do that when he was on, where on Act 2. Why wasn't? Of course he was talking to Ben. We just didn't see that part of it. So, yeah, man, I'm so stoked for this. If this is real, then great. I mean, it does mean that they should go back and change Return of the Jedi to have Ewan McGregor at the end of it, and not what's his name? Brain fart.
Alec Guinness.
Alec Guinness, because Alec Guinness is at the end of that movie,
Sure.
so therefore, why is he a young version? But regardless, I can oversee that, overlook that, because whatever. But then again, let's be honest, bit of prosthetic, he looks spitting into him anyway, so I'm cool with that.
Well, in our next podcast, we'll be going through The Force Awakens, Rogue One, and The Last Jedi, and a little more of Solo. I've been Adam.
And I've been Andy. Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening to our original trilogy retrospective. We'll catch you again. And please do leave us comments on our Facebook page, and check out our Instagram page. Check out our TeePublic store with some great T-shirts that we're uploading onto that site almost weekly.
Yeah.
We'll be in touch with you next time with some more great Star Wars.